Your Honda is bleeding money, and your mechanic knows exactly where the leak is, but it's not oil. It's not coolant. It's 12 things your mechanic hopes stay quiet. Some will save you hundreds this year. One of them could save your engine. Let's fix that right now. Your Honda's oil change interval is a money machine. Open your Honda manual right now. For most CB 500s, CBR 650Rs, Africa Twins, the recommended interval sits around 6,000 to 8,000 kilometers. On the surface, that sounds responsible. It sounds like Honda looking out for you, but here's what they don't print on that page. With a quality full synthetic 10W40 or 5W40 JSO MA2 oil, the right oil, properly applied. Most Honda engines running clean pavement in normal conditions are perfectly fine at 10,000 to 12,000 kilometers between changes. That's not a forum rumor. That's basic oil chemistry combined with what Honda's own engines actually tolerate. So why does the manual say less? Because shorter intervals mean more labor hours, more oil filter sales, more reasons for you to come back, sit in the waiting room, and spend money. Now, minder, this doesn't mean you go rogue and skip maintenance. Dirty, dusty environments, off-road use, track days, shorter intervals absolutely make sense. But if you're a clean street rider on good synthetic oil, you have more room than the service schedule implies. The manual is a starting point, not the law of physics. Recommended parts is just sales language. You bring your Honda in for a routine service. The bike rides fine. Then the invoice comes back and it looks like a grocery list. New front sprocket, new pads, new battery, new this, inspect that. Here's the truth about each of those line items. Front sprockets on most Honda 500 to 650 cubic centimeters bikes are a known consumable, but that doesn't mean the rear is finished at the same time. When shops tell you to replace both together as a package, ask them to show you the rear sprocket wear, get the measurement. Don't just take their word for it. Brake pads on Hondas are exceptionally forgiving. If you're not doing hard city braking or aggressive riding, front pads on a CBR or CB twin can last 20,000 to 30,000 kilometers without drama. If they're telling you the pads are done at 10,000 kilometers, ask to see them. Batteries. Honda OEM Yuasa batteries are built to last 4 to 6 years under normal use. If yours died at 18 months, the battery probably isn't the problem. A faulty regulator rectifier, a parasitic drain from an alarm or GPS unit, or an improper charger will kill any battery, brand new or not. Selling you a replacement battery is easier than diagnosing your charging system, and it's more profitable. When they say, while you're here, we recommend, that's not a safety briefing, that's a revenue strategy. Know the difference. If this is already saving you money, hit that like button right now. And if you're new here, subscribe and ring the notification bell. We do this every week for Honda riders who want the real story. Chain lube is 90% marketing. Walk into any Honda dealership accessory wall, and you'll find branded chain spray with premium pricing to match. The packaging is slick, the claims are bold, and the price is about 3 times what you actually need to pay. Here's the chemistry stripped bare. Honda's own lube spec calls for wet-type synthetic chain lubricant. That's it. Not ceramic-infused titanium-bonded aerospace compound, a quality generic wet-type lube. JSO approved, does the exact same job at a fraction of the cost. But here's the trap most riders fall into. And it's worse than using cheap lube. Over-lubing. When you apply too much chain lube, excess product mixes with road dust and grit to form an abrasive paste. That paste then works itself into every link, every roller, every contact surface with the sprocket teeth. You're not protecting your chain, you're grinding it. And that grinding creates wear on your swing arm, your chain guard, and throws dark grime across your rear wheel spokes, which, coincidentally, gives the shop more to clean and inspect next visit. Thin, even coat, wipe the excess, generic wet-type lube. That's the whole secret. Battery scams are real, and they're easy to run. Your Honda won't start. The mechanic says it's the battery. You pay for a new one, feel relieved, and ride home. 6 months later, it happens again. Sound familiar? Here's what's actually going on. A genuinely failed battery shows specific symptoms: slow cranking even after a full charge, resting voltage below 12.4 volts, and voltage that collapses fast under starter load. Those are the real signs. What mechanics often skip is the next diagnostic question. Why did it fail? Cheap trickle chargers running overnight on an incorrect mode will cook a battery in under a year. A parasitic drain from an aftermarket alarm, a GPS tracker, or a poorly wired accessory will pull your battery flat every time the bike sits for a week. A failing regulator rectifier will either undercharge your battery until it sulfates or overcharge it until it swells and dies. All of these root causes take maybe 20 minutes to diagnose with a multimeter. None of them are exciting. None of them cost as much as a new battery. That's why the new battery gets sold first. Buy yourself a decent multimeter. Learn how to test resting voltage and how to do a simple parasitic drain check. It takes one afternoon and will pay for itself the first time a shop tries to sell you a battery your bike doesn't need. Brake fluid lasts longer than they admit. 2-year brake fluid intervals. That's what most Honda manuals say. And mechanics have turned that recommendation into an annual ritual that pads their service hours beautifully. Here's what the physics actually say. .4 and .4 plus brake fluid absorbs moisture over time. That's real, and that's why intervals exist. But the rate of absorption depends almost entirely on your conditions. A sealed system, a dry climate, a bike that isn't stored outdoors, and brake lines that are never opened, that fluid can sit clean and effective for 3 to 4 years without meaningful degradation. The aggressive deterioration shops warn you about happens when reservoir caps are left off, when the bike lives outside in humid air, or when the lines are regularly cracked open during pad changes. Check the color. Fresh .4 is nearly clear with a slight yellow tint. Dark brown or black fluid is telling you something. Cloudy fluid is telling you something. Perfectly amber fluid that's been in a sealed system for 28 months? That fluid has not turned into danger. Annual brake fluid services on a street bike in a temperate climate are a high-margin, low-effort job that looks responsible on an invoice. Condition-based replacement is smarter. Use your eyes, not the calendar. Still watching? That means you're serious about knowing your Honda. Subscribe if you haven't already, drop a like, and let me know in the comments, has a mechanic ever sold you something on this list? I read every single one. Your fork seals probably don't need a full rebuild. You take your Honda in, the mechanic sees a faint wet ring around the fork tube, and suddenly you're looking at a full fork rebuild quote. It sounds serious. It feels urgent. Most of the time, it isn't. A slight wet ring on a fork seal is normal. It's the seal doing its job, flexing, sealing, moving with the stanchion through thousands of compression cycles. True fork seal failure looks like oil actively running down the tube, visible puddles forming on the lower leg, or a noticeable loss of fork firmness and control. A faint ring? That's often nothing more than dust contamination pressing against the seal lip. The correct first step is cleaning. Slide a clean plastic card or feeler gauge gently around the inside edge of the seal to clear any trapped grit. Wipe the stanchion, ride it. Check it again in a week. That alone resolves the issue on many bikes and buys thousands more kilometers before any real intervention is needed. Full fork rebuilds and OEM seal replacements are absolutely necessary when the situation genuinely calls for it. A heavily used bike, track riding, mud, or dirt exposure. But recommending a complete teardown as a first response to a slight wet ring is a revenue move, not a safety call. Always try the clean first approach. Your wallet will appreciate the difference. Jet washing your bike is destroying it. This one is counterintuitive because pressure washing feels thorough. It feels like you're doing the right thing. The bike comes out gleaming, and you feel like a responsible owner. What you can't see is what's happening underneath. On Honda motorcycles specifically, fork seals are one of the first casualties of high-pressure water. The pressure forces water past the seal lip and into the fork tube, contaminating the oil and accelerating wear from the inside. You won't feel it for a while, but you'll pay for it eventually. Steering stem bearings are next. Water intrusion into the stem leads to rust forming on the bearing races, and the result is that notchy, clunky feeling in the steering that develops over time and costs real money to fix properly. ABS units, brake line unions, headlight connectors. Many of Honda's sealed connectors are robust, but repeated high-pressure washing compresses water into places it was never designed to reach. Shops that pressure wash bikes during service and later find developing issues aren't necessarily diagnosing problems. Sometimes they're creating them. Low-pressure hose, soft sponge, and careful technique. That's how you wash a Honda. Spend the extra 5 minutes. Your bearings, seals, and ABS unit are worth it. Chain tension is a spec, not a feeling. Ask most riders how their chain tension should feel, and you'll get a shrug. Ask some mechanics, and you'll get a similar answer dressed up in confidence. Here's the actual spec for most Honda chain-driven bikes. 20 to 25 millimeters of vertical play, measured at the bottom run of the chain, halfway between the two sprockets. That's it. That's the entire measurement. It matters more than most people realize. Too tight and you're overloading the countershaft bearing with every revolution. That bearing isn't cheap, and it doesn't announce its failure. It just gradually gets worse until it takes the output shaft seal with it. Too loose, and you're risking chain skip under hard acceleration, shock loading through the drivetrain, and in extreme cases, a snapped chain at the worst possible moment. The fix costs nothing, a tape measure or a simple ruler. 2 minutes at the end of every oil change. Yet the number of bikes that come into shops with wildly incorrect chain tension, both directions, is remarkable. Your Honda manual lists the exact spec for your model. Find it. Use it. And if a mechanic sets it by feel alone without measuring, that's worth a polite follow-up question. ECU software updates won't wake your bike up. We updated your bike's software. It should feel livelier now. This is one of the most elegant upsells in the service industry because it sounds technical, costs almost nothing in time, and is nearly impossible for the customer to verify. Here's what Honda ECU updates on street-legal bikes actually contain. Emissions calibration tweaks, idle refinement, minor throttle map adjustments, and occasional recall-related fixes for specific fault conditions. That's the honest list. What they don't contain, meaningful power gains, dramatic throttle response improvements, or anything that fundamentally changes how your bike performs on the road. Real performance changes, the kind you actually feel, come from fueling hardware, cam profiles, exhaust flow, or a proper dyno-based ECU reflash by someone who actually knows what they're doing, not a dealership service update that costs you an hour of labor. If a mechanic or service advisor tells you an upcoming software update will transform your bike, ask them for the Honda Service Bulletin number. Ask them to show you the documented change log. If they can't produce a specific bulletin with a specific list of what changes, you're being sold a feeling, not a service. 3 more secrets left, and these last ones are the ones mechanics really hope you never find out. Make sure you're subscribed so you never miss content like this. Tire wear is about you, not your suspension. Cupped rear tire, worn out center strip, uneven shoulder wear. A mechanic looks at it, and the word suspension appears almost immediately in the conversation, and sometimes that's legitimate, but often it's not. The stock suspension on a CBR 650R, a CB 500X, an Africa Twin, a Rebel 1100, these are properly engineered for street riding. Honda didn't cheap out on the hardware. If your bike tracks straight, corners predictably, and the suspension rebounds without wallowing or bottoming out, the hardware is almost certainly not your tire problem. What actually destroys Honda tires prematurely is riding style. Hard trail braking loads the front contact patch in ways that create rapid wear patterns. Urban riding where you never lean past 15 degrees means you're rolling on a tiny strip of tire center indefinitely, while the shoulders stay almost fresh, and that creates uneven wear. Cold tire temperatures in early morning corners flex the carcass differently than a warmed-up tire, creating subtle but cumulative stress. Before you authorize a suspension overhaul or a set of upgraded shocks based on a tire inspection, ask the mechanic to explain exactly which suspension measurement is out of spec. If they can't give you a number, the problem probably isn't your suspension. Most squeaks are 5-minute fixes. Strange noise, dealer appointment, 2 hours of labor. We had to check the wheel bearings, the suspension linkage, the brake carrier. All good, nothing definitive found. But here's the bill for diagnostic time. Most Honda squeaks are embarrassingly simple. Dry foot peg rubber mounts squeak against the frame. The chain slider on the swing arm develops a dry friction squeak that sounds genuinely alarming. Rear shock linkage pivot points and swing arm bolts need periodic lubrication, And when they don't get it, they announce themselves with exactly the kind of noise that sounds expensive. Plastic fairing panels rubbing against metal frame sections are responsible for a huge percentage of mysterious noise complaints. And the fix is a small piece of foam tape or a single loosened fastener repositioned. The unknown noise diagnosis is a shop's best friend. It justifies unlimited time on a lift and creates a sense of mystery that the customer can't dispute. But the truth is that an experienced Honda owner who knows their bike can locate and fix most squeaks in an afternoon with a bottle of chain lube, a tube of motorcycle grease, and 15 minutes of methodical attention. Go through the simple stuff first: pivot points, sliders, foot peg mounts, fairing edges. If the noise disappears, you saved yourself a lot of money and learned something about your bike in the process. Your Honda manual is more powerful than any mechanic's opinion. This is the one that ties everything together. Honda publishes factory service manuals, the Honda Lean Manual, or HLM, depending on your region and model. These documents contain the exact torque specs, the correct fluid specifications, the accurate service intervals, and the precise procedures for every service task your bike will ever need. Oil filter drain plug torque. On most Honda engines sits around 10 to 14 Newton meters. Over-torque that plug by guessing, and you're staring at a cracked case. Coolant specification needs to match Honda's HO4 or HO5 spec. Mix the wrong type and you're degrading corrosion protection inside your radiator. These aren't opinions. They're engineering specifications that exist because Honda tested them. When a mechanic tells you, "We always use a slightly heavier oil," or "We torque it a bit tighter just to be safe," those are experience-based deviations from engineered specifications, and they can age gaskets, crack cases, or compromise the cooling system over time in ways that don't show up immediately. The power move is simple. Get the factory manual for your specific model. They're available online for most Honda bikes, often for free on enthusiast forums or for a small fee through Honda's documentation portal. When a mechanic makes a claim about how something should be serviced, ask them to show you the Honda manual page that supports it. You're not being difficult. You're being the kind of owner who knows their machine. And mechanics who are actually good at their jobs will respect you more for it, not less. We started this video with a simple truth. You've probably been paying for things you didn't need. Now you know why. It's not always malicious. Some of it is just the nature of how service businesses make money. Conservative intervals, recommended packages, impressive-sounding diagnostics. But knowledge is the only tool that changes the equation in your favor. Know your chain spec. Know your oil interval. Know what a real fork seal failure looks like versus a slightly wet ring. Know when to use a multimeter before buying a battery. Know that your Honda's factory manual is a more reliable authority than any service advisor's gut feeling. These bikes were built well. Honda put serious engineering into them. Honor that engineering by understanding it. That's 12 secrets your Honda mechanic would rather you didn't know. If any of these hit close to home, if you've been sold something on this list, or if this just saved you from your next service bill, drop it in the comments. Tell me which one got you. I read every single one and I reply when I can. If you're new to MotoZen, subscribe and hit the bell. We cover Japanese motorcycle culture the right way. Real information, real depth, built for riders who actually care about their machines. And if you want to go deeper, the next video is right there. And trust me, it's worth your time. Ride smart. See you in the next one.